What's up, guys? Andrew Cooper here, aka Coop a Fiasco on Twitter. Welcome in to the second episode of Coop's Fantasy Football Fiasco. First episode, thought went well. Got a lot of positive feedback. Had one person say that I should probably slow down, to which I say, I can't slow down. This is the way I talk. If you want it slowed down, we're now on iTunes, Spotify. Go over there and hit the old, 50% speed and slow it down for yourself. But you can't slow me down over here because we only have an hour. And last week we talked about wide receivers with Mike Fiella, and we kind of proved how short an hour is. At the end of that show, there were sleepers that need to be talked about, and they didn't get talked about. So we're gonna have to circle back on some wide receiver sleepers, probably in a couple weeks or so, because right now we're going through each position: wide receiver, quarterback, running back, tight end. Today, quarterback. A lot of people think that they can just kind of cruise by, not worry about quarterback, not worry about tight end, not worry about defense. All they care about is running back and wide receiver. They draft a ton of them. That's all they add off waivers. And I tell you right now, playing like that is a one-way, first-class, bullet speed train ticket to third place. I've seen it a million times. Guys who are very good at this game, they go out, all they care about is those two positions. All they add off waivers, those two positions, and they come in third. Because when it comes to the tournament at the end, everybody has good running backs and wide receivers. How do you think you made it there? The difference makers are those onesie positions, right? So that's where I'm at today. We're going to look at quarterback the way we did it the first episode is the way we're going to do it with all four positions, right? We're going to do, I'm going to talk for about 20 minutes about the elite guys, about my process. We're going to bring in a very special guest this week today. Scott Fish, one of the legends of the industry, is going to come talk to us about the mid-range quarterbacks. And then I'll finish it up with some sleeper concepts. And folks, I see you in the chat. Gemmo, Chalupa, Britt, Albert, FF, Tommy. What's up, gang? Thank you guys for joining us again. Let's get into it right away, though. Quarterback is the most important position in real life football. In fantasy football, it can be a difference maker, but there's a lot of ways to go about it. The way that I approach quarterback is this. There are two drafts in your draft. There's a draft within the draft, honestly. And in Superflex, it's even more important to be a part of the draft within the draft, and that's the quarterback draft. In Superflex, that draft ends way before the regular draft. If you're in the Scott Fish Bowl, look at the quarterbacks that are left in rounds 15, 16, 17, 18. There's none. So the draft within the draft is incredibly important. And if you want to get a top guy, you really got to plan ahead. Like, I am, in all aspects of this game, not in favor of going into a draft saying, I'm doing zero RB no matter what. I'm taking a wide receiver in the first round. I don't like that. But at quarterback, that is kind of at the top end of quarterback, at least. That's kind of the one position where you have to say, I'm going to take an elite guy this time. And you have to know when you're going to do it. So let's get into the very top guys, right? And here we talked about wide receivers last week where you're splitting hairs. If you move one guy up, Jordan Loop, I see you in the chat. Shout out, baby. If you move one guy up, right? Like if you move CeeDee Lamb to wide receiver 2, is the example we gave last week, you're gonna have CeeDee Lamb in every league. That's even more. That goes even more for quarterback. Like if you take Lamar Jackson and you make him your QB1, you're gonna have Lamar Jackson in every league, right? Or if you just take even the top 3 guys, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen. If you pick one of those guys and say, I'm getting this guy, this is my guy, and say it's Josh Allen, then you'll get him every time in the second round. That's what you want to do. But just know that there's other ways to go about it. The way that I handle these top guys is I personally am not attached to any of them. I like them all. So I wait. In my opinion, best ball this year, where you have to take 2 or 3 quarterbacks. Look at Underdog, for instance, where, TJ Hernandez is 4 for 4 has already proven that the ideal builds are 2 or 3 quarterbacks, and every team takes 2 or 3. That ADP is pushing it up in regular drafts. So personally, I'm not taking any of these guys in the second round the way we're seeing so far. I think that's going to settle down a little bit. But if they do fall to the third round, or especially the fourth round, I'll take whoever's left. That's the way I'm handling Mahomes, Hurts, and Allen. At the top, I don't care about stacking. If I take Diggs, I'm not going to force myself to take Allen. if Allen's there in the third round, I will rub it in everyone's face that they let me stack Diggs and Allen that way, but I'm not going to go out of my way to force it. And I think that's the way you should treat these guys as well. So with the top dogs, that's my approach. Let me know in the chat if any of you guys think that there's another way. Yamato, I'm the same way as you. Drafting for value is the way, and in those early rounds, that's the way. And as far as if you do really like a guy, I will suggest get him, because there's no drafting T. Higgins and then next round circling back and taking DK Metcalf here. That's not how it works at QB. If you have a guy, go get him. All right. So that's how I'm handling those top dogs. In the next group here, I kind of treat it the same way in the second tier, the way I treat the top tier. I'm not going to draft a quarterback until every guy that I like to potentially be the number one flex player is gone. So for me, I look at the first 2-3 rounds, and there's 10 to 12 running backs that I think could be the number one running back, right? Why can't Josh Jacobs, Ramondre Stevenson, why can't those guys be the top running back, right? There's 10 to 12 wide receivers, right? That I think these guys could be the number one dude. So if that's the case, I'm not going to take a QB over those guys. And right there, I just basically said there's about 2 rounds worth of guys. And on top of that, even though we've never had a tight end be the number one flex player, the positional scarcity that you get from Travis Kelce and that you get from Mark Andrews, that applies there as well. So for me, that pretty much eliminates me taking a quarterback anywhere in the first 3 rounds. And I'll stretch that out to include Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is a guy I like, and we'll get to that momentarily. But first and foremost, that's how I treat it. I think that's how everyone should go about it is, why don't you start by making a list of guys you think could be the number one flex player? Because those are the real league winners. And then once you have that done, you're going to feel a lot better about taking a quarterback. I'll take Jalen Hurts. If I go through that full list and it's exhausted and no one's taking QBs, I'll say, hell yeah, give me that guy, right? So that's the way I'm operating the top. And the biggest, one of the sneakiest things about quarterback versus other positions is this is the one position where you can really use your knowledge of your league and your format and how people operate to your advantage. Everyone has that guy in their league, Pete, that takes the first quarterback off the board, or he drafts Patrick Mahomes every year. I swear that guy exists in every league. Know who you're drafting with. Know if your league mates, if they draft guys early, wait. If you know that your league mates are like the super sharp Twitter crew that refuse to ever draft a quarterback, use that to your advantage as well. Take a quarterback in the third round. Take the first one off the board. Get that advantage. Me personally, I usually backfill them, but in one of my hometown leagues, everybody thinks they're some super high stakes shark savant, and I end up getting the best quarterback in like the 4th round. Not a problem for me. So, with the top dogs, that's the way I'm rolling. Let's take a look at the second group here. And then after that, we're going to have Scott Fish on to sort out the hard part of the draft, the middle grouping. So for this next group, across the board, guys are kind of going in different spots. So I like to use FFPC Expert ADP. It is one of the best places to draft, in my opinion. You can draft anywhere from $5 to $2,000 main event to $5,000 crazy high stakes leagues. So if you want to get on that, go over to my FFPC, use promo code ALARM, and first time depositors will get $25 when they deposit 35 or more. So this second group is fairly tightly packed in ADP over there. You have Lamar Jackson going at ADP 28, right? So that's second. That's around the third round. Joe Burrow ADP 30, so right around the same spot in the third round. And then Justin Herbert goes at ADP 40.2 and Justin Fields 40.4. So to me, that's a coin flip on who goes first in any given spot. And the other guy I would put in this category, because there is a drop off after him, is Trevor Lawrence. He goes ADP 49. So these guys in these high stakes games, it is translating over from best ball that people are saying, I want to get an elite QB. I want to get a difference maker. They're going here. Here's my cheat sheet on how I personally am going about this crew here. I look at Lamar Jackson this year at ADP 28, and he's the guy that I personally feel could jump right into that top 3 group for next year. We've actually seen this guy be the MVP of the league. We've seen him lead the league in touchdown passes while running for 10. That's like Cam Newton MVP year. That's what he did. Led the league in touchdowns, ran for 10. Like that is game-breaking ability. And not only that, but he's getting a new offensive coordinator in Todd Monken that wants to throw. They went out, they got Odell Beckham Jr., they got Rashad Bateman's coming back. They drafted Zay Flowers. Like they're loading up for him to throw more, but that's not going to take away from his rushing ability. He's still going to be able to score those touchdowns that are the real meat and potatoes, especially in 4-point passing leagues. So I'm in on Lamar Jackson. Joe Burrow, really only mostly stacking him if Chase is there. Or, if I have Chase, if I have Higgins, I will stack it if the value's there, but I'm not taking that much. Where I really go is Fields at ADP or Herbert quickly after Fields goes, because those two guys, I believe, have crazy upside. And Trevor Lawrence, he's the odd man out for me. But if we get through that first group and it's a stalemate, I'm looking around, no one's taking anybody. If he slides, then I'm taking him. So that's kind of my cheat sheet on that. If you want to take advantage of that and these ADPs, go over to my FFPC. Like I said, use promo code ALARM, and first-time depositors, they'll give you $25 when you put in 35 or more. And you're probably going to want to put in more than 35 if you're playing over there, because it's one of the best opportunities to win big. And one of the coolest things they do is all summer they do the $2,000 buy-in main event where you can win big money. Some of those drafts you can either do online or you can go to Vegas and do them, which kind of a cool excuse to do a Vegas trip. Yeah. So for me, I'm taking Lamar Jackson. Fields, of course. A lot of people have telling me that instead of taking Lamar Jackson, they just wait and take Fields because it's the same thing. And to me, I think that's a mistake. Lamar Jackson, as I said, has been MVP, has led this league in touchdown passes, and the floor for him, in my opinion, is just generally it's higher. We know he's a known commodity as he's done it before with Justin Fields. He has a solid floor. The rushing always gives you floor, but we don't know necessarily what his ability to pass at a incredibly high level is. And I believe in Justin Fields. I just said I was drafting him at ADP in a bunch of spots, but do we know if he can take it to the highest level this year? You look around at guys like Josh Allen, for instance, who came out and threw for 52% completion percentage and 58 in his first 2 years, and then took it to the highest level the third year. I think Justin Fields is on that trajectory, but can he take it to that level this year? That's where he's a higher risk. So I don't mind taking both of them, but I'm not ruling out Lamar Jackson just because Justin Fields exists. That seems like the popular thing to do, and I think that's a mistake. So Lamar Jackson, I'm taking. Burrow, the one that I mentioned that, I'm fading a little bit compared to most. And, I've gotten some flack for that, but that is one where I think you can actually get a cheaper version of him later. And that's Justin Herbert, right? I see some people in the chat throwing up the Justin Herbert to the moon. What up, sellers? Thanks for popping in. If you look at Burrow versus Herbert, the completion percentage last year for Burrow, 68.2%. For Herbert, 68.3. Yards per game, Burrow just under 280, Herbert just under 280. The big difference for these guys was the average depth of target for Burrow was a lot higher. With Justin Herbert, it was a lot lower. With Burrow, he threw obviously more touchdown passes. Herbert threw less. To me, both of those things can be tied back to the offensive coordinator. And the upgrade they made this year going to Kellen Moore is huge. If you look at Joe Lombardi, the things that he's done throughout the year, throwing to the running back, that's not just because Austin Eckler's there. It's not just because he had Alvin Kamara. If you go back to his time with the Lions, he threw over 150 passes, dialed up over 150 passes to the running backs. Guys like, Reggie Bush got hurt, and it was guys like Joique Bell and Theo Riddick and whoever. So that's what he wants to do. It's built into it. And last year, if you take all the quarterbacks that played at least a handful of games, started at least 5 or 6, Justin Herbert ranked 32nd out of 34 in ADOT. So Joe Lombardi was holding that back. That's great news for Samaje Perine and Javonte Williams over in Denver, where Lombardi is now. But I almost said San Diego there. In Los Angeles, give me Justin Herbert. I'm all in on him this year. Last year, he threw for the third most yards, even with those conditions, even with the low ADOT conditions. Now they have Kellen Moore, who was run out of town by Mike McCarthy because he's throwing the ball too much, because he was running the score up, right? Like he wasn't giving the defense time to rest. Ridiculous. For fantasy football, give me that. I don't want the defense to rest. A pick six in fantasy football, you just get the ball back to sling it again. So I want Justin Herbert out there running, gunning, huck it, chuck it, pigskin, and I think we're going to get it finally this year. So I'm excited for him there. With Trevor Lawrence, there is an argument to be made that he's in the same group. I mean, him and Herbert only threw for 25 touchdowns last year. The difference is that I've seen Herbert do it, right? I've seen Herbert in previous seasons already throw for over 30 touchdowns. He just threw for almost 5,000 last year. So Lawrence, I will take, but I've seen Lawrence go ahead of Herbert, and to me, it's not really a question. Justin Herbert, with the addition of a first-round wide receiver, no more worrying about Mike Williams or Keenan Allen getting hurt. They have the tools now. They have Gerald Everett still there, obviously. So Josh Palmer still there. Austin Eckler still there. So I'm not worried at all about Herbert. In fact, having Eckler is so huge. Same thing with Drew Brees with Kamara. It's so huge to have a guy where you say, should we run it? And instead, you just do a dump down pass, which is the extension of the run. It's basically the same thing, but Herbert gets those points. My goodness, Trey Bone, give me that all day long. So Justin Herbert this year, I think is an absolute smash spot. It might be the best spot ever for Herbert because if next year, if Austin Eckler leaves and they bring in, if you have a guy like Derrick Henry, you can't throw him 100 passes. So if Eckler leaves and they go with somebody that doesn't have those chops, Herbert might not be as good. But this year, I think Herbert is an absolute slamma jamma. So before we bring Scott Fish on, just want to give you a couple last pieces of advice at the top, right? Number one, and this goes back to the best ball concept where people are getting too globbed into best ball. It's leaking. The best ball, I love Dynasty. I love best ball. We do best ball drafts all the time with the family in the Fantasy Alarm Discord. Get yourself a membership. Use promo code Coop, and you'll get 50% off the first 6 months with that, and get in the Discord to hang out with us, get all the draft guide, get everything. I mean, if you get the all pro membership with promo code Coop, you get all our baseball picks, you get NASCAR picks. Matthew Sells is the 3 out of 4 times the NASCAR writer of the year. Like, it doesn't get any better than that. So you get all that, but so we love best ball, but best ball is getting in the way of the way we think about this position. And one of the big ones is stacking. Stacking is a great thing. Like, if you can pull off the stack properly and it works out, you crush. But Josh Larkey, one of our good friends over at 33rd Team, he was the main, in my opinion, he's the stack master. And he was the guy that drove the boat, saying that it's not just for best ball, it's for all formats. And I agree with that. But he is also the one that says, pump the brakes. If you reach even slightly, you're erasing all benefit of what that does for you, right? So if you reach on the wide receiver, if you reach on the quarterback, that is what's killing you. And I'm seeing it too much. I'm seeing too many people taking Stephon Diggs in the first round and then saying, I have to take Josh Allen in the second round. Same thing with Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown. Same thing with Mahomes and Kelsey. They're just in their mind. They're like, I have to do this. And you might be missing out on value. And who knows? You might have been able to actually get Josh Allen in the third round. So be very careful with stacking. The other one is it's okay to take 2 quarterbacks. I know that, somewhere in some magazine, somebody once said that you can never draft more than 1 quarterback. In 2003 at a gas station, that magazine, you picked it up and you put that in your mind and you never let it go. That's not true. Like, when you look at the breakout QBs of the past, Patrick Mahomes, Cam Newton, Deshaun Watson as a rookie, Lamar Jackson, there were 2 ways to get those guys. You either waited and took 1 quarterback and took them as a second quarterback. I guess there was 3. I guess you could have technically taken Patrick Mahomes as QB like 18 and made him your starting quarterback if you're like a real sicko, but nobody was really doing that. Or the other way is to get him off waivers. So my thought process is this: if your weakest position is quarterback, then take 2. That's what your bench is for. If you start your draft with 7 wide receivers and 4 running backs, then it's okay to take 2 tight ends. It's okay to take 2 quarterbacks. Like, you already have plenty at the position. So that's where I'm at with those. Let's hear something from our buddies over at FFPC, and then we'll bring on the guy that you all came to see. I know, I got some concepts for you, but everybody wants to see the legendary Scott Fish, the charity man that makes it all happen. So let's hear from FFPC, and then we'll bring on Scott to sort out this middle round.
Kendra Miller fan. He's running back 46 in the Fantasy Pros Championship right now at the end of the 11th round. I want you to talk a little bit about him from both standpoints. Number one, from redraft. He's in the backfield, same backfield as Alvin Kamara, who we talked about in the first hour, and then obviously Jamal Williams. But as far as dynasty goes too, what should you be doing now if you're a dunce like me and missed on Miller. What kind of offers should you be making for Kendre Miller in your dynasty leagues right now?
Well, the problem now is the news worked against you, right? In the sense that you know that there's a suspension looming. We don't know what that suspension is. So do you try to go after him prior to the suspension, or do you wait to see how long it is? Right? Because the higher the suspension is, the more expensive Kendre is going to be. It gives him an opportunity. We saw Kamara, you don't have to go farther than New Orleans. We saw Kamara take advantage. I remember they brought in Adrian Peterson. They had, what's his name? Mark Ingram.
Yep.
Right? And then they brought in Kamara, and everyone's like, there's no way Kamara's going to be relevant year one. And he smashed because talent comes through. These teams want to win now. They're going to put the best players out there. Kendre Miller comes off of a 1,400-yard season. Like, one thing for me, Balky, in fantasy, is if you showed me you did it, I'm going to believe you. This whole upside thing where you've never done it, I'm over all of that. Like, tight end position I talk about often. That's why I don't invest in rookie tight ends. I'll pay the price for a Kelsey. I'll pay for a Kittle when I know they're going to smash for me, right? Running back, you're looking for talent. You're looking for proven. This guy's proved it. And progression. You look at his career in college, he's progressed every year in the receiving game, in the rushing game. There's something about when you watch him play, and sometimes it's not, I don't have a great stat for you or anything, but there's certain guys when I see him play, something kind of, and he's one of the guys when I started watching his tape and just seeing what he can do. I think he can be an all-around workhorse. He had 224 touches in his last season in college. So look, we talk about New Orleans. We don't know what this offense is going to look like. They have a new quarterback. They have everything, a whole new situation there. He could come in with Kamara out and just take over that backfield right away.
Flex for me, then 21. Can you do something for me? Drop some bars to my guys for me, then 21.
Let's go, baby. Get the intro music out because we have a very, very special guest joining us. Honestly, probably the most special in the industry. Not going to lie. So let's bring him in. Without further ado, the most charitable man in all of fantasy football, Mr. Scott Fish. What's up, brother?
Man, quite an intro there. Very nice of you. Very kind. Glad to be here, man. Glad to be here. I'm glad to be your first official real guest.
That's right. We did the test guest last week in case nobody watched with Mike Fiala. And then now we bring in the real guest here. So yeah, the first official real guest. It's like those are kind of the prequels, right? We just get those out of the way, pretend they didn't happen. But yeah, what's happening, man? So the Scott Fish Bowl drafts are wrapping up. Another successful year. Are you ever nervous that something's going to happen and just the whole thing's going to go haywire, or you got it all figured out now?
I used to be much more nervous, but we have such a big team now, and I feel like every year it's kind of like ducks on the water. Like the surface looks smooth, but we're paddling our legs a ton underneath. It all just manages to work out. So now even when I stress out about something, I'm like, it's going to work out. Like it works out. It just happens. It just gets put together every year.
It's crazy how many people go into it. Like, I know it's not just you. It's like you got ambassadors all around, like Bob Gilchrist running around like crazy in Boston. Jordan Loop in the chat. I see him. I talked to him about the avatar makers, and those guys are working like Santa's elves over there to get, I don't even know how many avatars out, but
it's amazing. I can't possibly thank all these people enough. It's weird to think that just like 4 years ago, it was like me and Ryan, or just me. 4 or 5 years ago, it was just me. And then Ryan came on, and now there's a team of like 30 people.
Yeah. Eventually you'll be able to hand off all the hard parts and you'll just sit there throwing out invites like, like Mardi Gras parade. That'd be nice. But anyway, I didn't bring you here to gloat about your amazing tournament. I brought you in to do some fantasy football work. Scott, are you handling that today?
Yeah, I can do it. That's actually what I do for my job.
Believe it or not, he's not just like the fantasy Santa Claus. He pretty much invented Devi, by the way. So got a lot of accolades there. So let's look at the mid-round QBs. I talked about quarterback essentially 1 through 8 in the intro, all the way to Trevor Lawrence. So before we get to the names themselves, I kind of just want to ask you your opinion. I just gave 20 minutes rambling take on what I do. But in a normal 10 to 12 team league, let's say your hometown league, Some folks are pretty adamant about getting a QB early. Some are totally against it. Others just take value. What's your general philosophy? Normal league.
Yeah, I think you nailed it a little bit earlier talking about knowing your league. Like my home league, I didn't draft a quarterback for many years because I knew I could figure it out on the waiver wire. But more recently, the last couple of years, I kind of like having a really good quarterback. I think there's a couple benefits to it. You're not wasting money on waiver wire. You're not wasting fab on waiver wire. You're not fighting other teams for waiver wire stuff. And if you have a guy like Mahomes or something, or a Herbert or what, like, you're not wasting an extra roster spot on which guy do I start or whatever. You lock him in and you have an extra roster spot for a depth upside guy. So like, I feel like I've changed my tune over the last couple of years, and it's partly because I like having the roster spot and not having to deal with wasting waiver, but it's also the odds of making the playoffs the last few years with a top end quarterback, a top 6 or so quarterback, has just been unreal high, like 25-30% just by having one.
Right, exactly. And I was looking at some of the numbers there, and I, in the first segment, I said the same thing in my hometown league. Everybody started doing what they got it sharp and started fading them, and I'm the one that takes them now. And a guy like Mahomes, you mentioned, like, I don't think people realize how hard it is to throw 30 touchdown passes in this league. It's like people just like chalk.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, nobody can do it. I was looking at the numbers, and like going back from the 80s to now, less than 10% of the QBs essentially have a single season with 30 touchdown passes. It's just not, it doesn't happen that often. A couple times, even recently, I think when Russell Wilson led the league with touchdown passes, he only threw like 36. So it's not that it doesn't happen that often. And before we get to the mid range, I want to ask you one more quick question, because this has been, of the elite guys, this one has been a little divisive. The two Justins. They both go ADP on FFPC 40, like on the dot. If you were going to pick one, which one do you take?
Yeah, I'm a Herbert guy. Maybe I just old school, loving the passers. But I mean, we're talking about a guy who threw 4,700 yards and like 29 touchdowns last year with a rib injury for like multiple weeks, a shoulder injury for multiple weeks. I think he had 5,000 yards the year before. Like, you were mentioning his numbers versus Burrow, and like, I'm like, his first 2 years were better than any of Burrow's years at all so far. So it's Herbert for me. I get the upside with Fields, and if he can develop into more of a passer and churn out like a Lamar Jackson 35 touchdown year, yeah, sure, it's Fields. The upside's there, but it's Herbert for me. I want that guy that I think that can be a 5,000 yard passer in a division. He's going to have to be in a lot of shootouts.
I love that you have a take on that, because there's a cop out sitting right there, just to be like Herbert in 6, point passing, and Fields in 4. It's in right, the low hanging fruit, the easy cheat code there. So good. All right, let's get into the tier I brought you in for. Enough talking about the tier we just talked about. So after the first group, kind of a decent tier drop after Trevor Lawrence. You got, and I see these guys going all in conjunction. Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, Tua. Of those 4, and if you want to specify on 6 point versus 4 point, I think that's fair here. But yeah,
I don't find much of a difference between 6 and 4 personally. I'm not the guy that pushes that, because a guy who throws 34 touchdowns versus 26, like, what is that? 16 points difference over the course of a season. Like, it's 1 point per game. Like, whatever.
They don't want you to know that, though. Yeah. They don't want you to know that the 4 versus 6 cop out folks, of which I've been, I'll admit, in the past.
Oh, we all have. but yeah.
So yeah, all those guys: Watson, Prescott, Cousins, Tua. I group these together because I've seen Tua go first of this group. I've seen it all mixed around.
I have too.
But you rarely see people from the group below go ahead of these guys. So who do you like best? Who do you like worst out of those 4?
Every once in a while, you'll see someone super high on Anthony Richardson pop him up. But
oh yeah, that's true. Yeah. Oh, that's gonna start happening. I bet that's gonna get hot. I bet.
Yeah. I like that you have the tier cut off at Lawrence, because like for me and my son, that is a clear drop right there.
Yes.
So I like that you caught it there. Do
Would've been
you
too
want me
easy.
to rank them in
Would have been
order?
too. Oh yeah, that'd be even better.
I
That'd be
got
even
them?
better. It would have been too easy if I left Lawrence in there. So yeah, let me get a ranking.
Way too easy. So I have Kirk and Tua much higher than Watson and Prescott personally.
Okay.
Not much higher, but enough that I like those two more. We saw what Tua could do with Tyreek even before and after the first concussion. That offense can be all out explosive. Kirk, on the other hand, he's never missed a game due to injury since becoming a full-time starter. Like, he missed a COVID game. He missed one week 17 that was meaningless. He benched, but he's been a 4,000 plus yards, 30 plus total touchdowns. I think he had 29 last year plus a rushing or two, but 30 plus total touchdowns 3 straight years. And you just talked about how tough that is. Like, I think the Vikings offense is a little better this year, and their defense is equally as bad as they were last year. So I would slightly take Cousins over Tua, but I would never knock someone taking Tua because we saw some ridiculous 3 touchdown, 400 yard games last year, but Cousins' safety is just a touch above Tua for me. Then it's Dak. Dak, he looked pretty bad last year. A little worse than, but part of that's injury. Like, in his last 2 full seasons where he wasn't hurt at all, we're talking 4,400 to 4,900 yards, 30 plus touchdowns those 2 years. If he can stay healthy, I like him over Deshaun Watson, who I thought looked downright terrible most of the time last year. I know he's been out of football for a year and a half, but on and off the field, Watson is my 4th on that list. I know that he had some top 5 seasons a few years ago, points per game, but he's probably 4th on my list.
Yeah, I will say this about Cousins. You talk about the safety with him. And he falls in that category where I put Brady and Eli Manning. He's an elite thrower away of the football.
Oh,
right? He's good at honestly, it's a skill to be good at getting away with intentional grounding in this league.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, Cousins is nice at that. And I think that's a part of why he stays so healthy. And the other thing about Cousins is, for people that don't want to deal with it at quarterback, bye week for your Vikings is like what, 13?
Yeah, it's really late. It's late.
So you can set him and forget. If you like him, you set him and forget him, and then you just got to figure out down the road when everybody's already gone through and done their whole thing. You just pick one guy up one time, get that done with, and then move on. So I like that. The one guy on the list that I'm a little bit concerned about as of late is Dak Prescott. I don't like the comments coming out of him and around the team.
Okay.
Where I'm worried Mike McCarthy saying, moving Kellen Moore out because they're scoring too quick. That sounds good. As a fantasy football guy, that sounds terrible to me. Cowboys fans, they don't care about that. And then Dak says he's going to take better care of the football. And again, I don't care about interceptions. I know in the Scott Fish Bowl this year, they don't even mean anything. So those are definitely some concerning statements. I will say I like his offensive weapons, especially in the pass game, more than I like the Browns. And I know Stefanski from Minnesota, he loves to run. So I think there's just as many concerns there. That's why I still have him a touch above Watson. Exactly. Yeah. So I'm with you on that, man. And again, it's like I talked about in the first segment, like if you put Cousins above this crew, like as you do, it makes your life easier, but you're going to end up with a lot of Cousins, right?
Yeah.
Because,
it's because you can get them. Two is the high upside one, though. I don't think Cousins has Tua's upside. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I mean, but I don't know though, because Tua, we like to think about the mobility, but I imagine this year he's like, I can't imagine them calling his name on a QB sneak given the concerns. That's
probably true.
That's one of them. But hey, both those guys solid there. Before we get to the next tier, I pulled Anthony Richardson out for the reasons you mentioned. No easy buckets here, Scott. Anthony Richardson would have been an easy pick from this next tier. He is the lightning rod here. And if you want him, my advice to everybody, if you want him, you got to go get him, because somebody in your league has been, searching his name on Twitter. And the more you do that, the more you just start moving up to like 8 or 9. So for you, Anthony Richardson, are you willing to take him at ADP? And are you willing to take him as your only quarterback, as a standalone quarterback?
Well, the first thing I'm going to say is get your guys. Like, fantasy football is supposed to be fun. I know we want to win, but get your guys. Like, have fun with it. So if you like Richardson, go ahead, reach on that ADP. As far as I mean, I've drafted Anthony Richardson in a few leagues. I like having him. Is he going to be coming out of the draft my only quarterback? That's a little scary, man.
That's spicy. That's spicy, dude.
That
People
is-
were doing
that
that
is
with
a
Trey
little-
Lance last year. And
I think I do have Richardson ranked right near that edge of the top 12 there, which is probably just as high as any. Like I've seen some QB7s out there. That's a little bit pushy for me. I can't get that high.
I can't do that.
A little too maybe I'm a little too based in realism or something and less hype. But I don't think I can come out with him as my complete standalone. I'm sure I would grab one of those bottom second tier, third tier quarterbacks to start the season just to be safe. Or if Anthony Richardson doesn't start, or if he does fail,
Yeah. The move might be honestly, like if you wait, like let's say you wait and you get Kirk Cousins like cheap at like QB 10, which I mean that's where he goes, right? Like in that range.
Pretty much.
Like,
yeah.
Then I mean, if Anthony Richardson's just kind of sitting there later on, maybe slide him on the bench, see what happens. You got the safety in Kirk, who I mean, probably the least mobile quarterback in the league, him or Jared Goff, right? Like or Mac Jones, maybe I don't know, but and then you got the upside, so kind of a good mix. All right, before I let you go here, we got to sort out this second group, and again, this is probably more either super flex or 2 QB leagues, or if you're somebody like myself that is willing to sometimes take 2. Do you ever take 2 quarterbacks, Scott, in normal league?
Usually not unless it's super flex. Usually not though. It depends. If I take an Anthony Richardson, I'm taking one of these next guys probably. Yeah.
That's the way to be though, because it's like, why take Cousins and get Jared Goff? Although actually, you know what? I did say that, and then Jorge Martin, we love Jorge, right?
Yeah.
He kind of pointed out that their schedules match up like perfectly, like bingo bango.
Gotta love the schedule things.
We were calling it the Los Hermanos strategy.
Jeff Ratcliffe in his SFB Live LA thing, he took Goff, Amon-Ra, and Cousins Jefferson to start his draft. And I'm like, those are some Lions Vikings games you're gonna have fun watching.
Yeah. The over-unders for those games are gonna be like easily over 50, right? Like no defense,
imagine a lot of
defenses. Yeah. Vikings lost guys on defenses here too. Huh?
Yeah.
Like,
we lost 2 cornerbacks to Pittsburgh alone.
I know, I saw that. So it could be spicy games over there, but we like that for fantasy. So yeah, okay. So in this group, we'll since you don't really take 2, we'll leave this as a super flex or 2 QB conversation. Of these guys that I'm going to list off here, who are you most comfortable with as your QB2? Let's say you have Kirk Cousins. The next group of guys, QBs 14 to 19, are Geno Smith, Daniel Jones, Jared Goff, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Derek Carr. And feel free to go off the script if you're just like, hey, I got a late guy I love, but of those guys.
Well, the late guy I love that I keep grabbing is Sam Howell, but that's more of a super flex QB3 thing. But out of those, I can't be Daniel Jones throwing 15 touchdowns.
I can't believe they paid him, man.
Just 48 slot receivers, but it's not Russell Wilson. I've been so down on him the last 2 years, but I like him a little better this year at his price. But it's probably got to be either Rodgers, Geno, or Goff. I have them right next to each other. I love what Ben Johnson's doing. Goff had multiple scores in like 6 of his last 8. I don't know that they've improved, like Gibbs and Montgomery, adding Laporta, like the wide receivers are still kind of weak, still the same. Geno added Charbonnet and JSN. JSN's going to be great for that offense. But Aaron Rodgers, man, I didn't think he looked good last year, but when Aaron Rodgers, when people don't believe in him and when he's pissed off and he has to prove something, man, it's hard to turn down Aaron Rodgers.
He's got that spite in him, right? He's got that. There is something to that though. Like, like Warren Buffett talked about how the investor talked about how the first big purchase he made was buying a company because they changed the stock price and he just like spite bought the company. And that is what Berkshire Hathaway was, like a furniture company that he bought just to bury them. And Aaron Rodgers has that in him. Like, the moment the narrative he'll coast until the narrative gets bad. And then he's like, now we need to Hulk it up quick. So
Yeah, I mean, he's got Garrett Wilson. He's got some weapons there. He's got some good weapons like Wilson. He's got some many average and below average weapons that he requested to join the team with him.
right, yeah.
But, yeah,
Okay. Before we let you go here, I want to say Russell Wilson with a new coach or Derek Carr with a new team.
Russell Wilson with a new coach.
Yeah,
I just think he has better weapons. I mean, they're pretty close actually. I mean, you got Olave, you got Michael Thomas. I like Rashid Shaheed. So, but
no matter how you slice it, if you're making a bet on Russell Wilson, you're betting on Sean Payton and Joe Lombardi.
Yeah.
End of the day, like you got to think about those guys and whether you like them or not. That really is what it boils down to.
Yeah, and honestly, it's more them than it is Russ. I just like watching Russ at tail end of his years in Seattle. I thought he was cooked. I thought he was done. I didn't know what Denver was doing, but I like him better at his price this year.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, thank you for joining us. I know the Scott Fish Bowl off and running, almost wrapped up. What else you got going on this offseason, man? What do you got planned? You going to be at the Expo?
I'm going to be at the Expo in a couple weeks. We got Fantasy Football Weekly returning for its 29th season, longest running fantasy show out there. That'll be kicking off here next month. Got fantasy football training camp, and we got couple state fair shows if you happen to be in Minnesota. I love doing those live shows. I bring Ian on. He gets to do some live radio, which is fun. But I got stuff going on.
Live radio state fair shows?
Yeah.
What is this? That's awesome.
Yeah. We have 3 live events a year. We do this fantasy football training camp in front of like 1,000 to 1,500 people. We do a live show in front of them and talk to et cetera, et cetera. And then we go to the state fair and do our 2-hour radio show in front of, hundreds of people. And I always bring Ian on to come talk as well.
Dude, Ian, he is the chosen one, man. I can't wait to watch his career unfold, man, because he's already so sharp, and it can only go up from here. So
it's fun. He loves it.
Yeah, it's awesome. Everyone loves it based on the reactions you get on Twitter. So, all right, Scott, I'll let you go, man. Thank you so much for coming on and joining us, buddy. Have a good one. After this, folks, I'm going to get back and we're going to hit on the deep sleepers, guys that can not only win you your super flex, your Scott Fish Bowl, your 2 QB leagues, but also potentially become dynasty assets or even sneak into those 1 QB leagues. Let's hear from our buddies at FFPC first, and then we'll get into that.
Breece Hall right now, and I've talked to plenty of high-stakes players, I'm sure you have too, Kev. Had Hall not torn his ACL last year, he might have been the 101 in drafts this year. That's how good he was looking last year, and obviously with the addition of Aaron Rodgers. At the 305, running back 11 behind Derrick Henry and Ramondre Stevenson, right ahead of Jahmyr Gibbs and Najee Harris. Your thoughts on him as a mid-third round pick? How have you been attacking him? Have you been getting him at that spot so far this year?
Yeah, if I start out with 2 wide receivers, Breece Hall is right at the top of the queue coming into the third. If I knew he'd be healthy for week 1, I was still a little.
Well, he'd be going higher than the mid third.
Right. He may go 101 or RB1 at least.
Yeah.
But I don't think we know that even if he's healthy in spring and the summer.
Mm-hmm.
I still like if I'm running a team, if I'm the coach, I'm bringing him back slow. Like he's on a pitch count. Like I want him for the end of the season because I got Aaron Rodgers for the playoffs, right? Like even if he's fully healthy, I would work him in slow. But that is actually what you want. Like he's still going to get the high value touches. So yeah, if we know he's healthy, he's a first rounder. So like if he's sitting there in the third, especially when I get 2 wide receivers to start, I'll take Hall all day.
Yeah, it almost makes you think that the uncertainty with Breece Hall has made him unfairly fall too far, right? Like because we're talking about the team here in June. They're still hoping that he's ready for week 1. This is not, we'll see what happens. We're taking it day by day. We're liking how he's coming along. No, they still think by week 1. And the fact that we have that timeline, I think, maybe bumps him up, especially as the drafting season gets deeper and deeper here in July and August. Maybe we start seeing him go up the boards as well.
So early on the sheet of the tablet in my mind, cause I don't write shit, cause I ain't got time for my second.
What's up, gang? We are back. As has become tradition after 2 episodes now, we went a little long with the guest, leaving not much time for sleepers. Yeah, Timothy Lambert, I see you there, buddy. Love a good Buffett reference. Yeah, I know Tim is a finance guy himself, went to school with Bentley, so I figured you would like that reference. You guys in the chat, throw up the sleeper QBs you like, because it's now time to get in that segment. I see you, Chris Sellers, Desmond Ritter, to the moon. He's on the table here. He's on the table. Everybody is. To make it easier for you guys, let's pull up Earn Dog. If you have that graphic, I just took the remaining quarterbacks. We went through the top 19 or so. So now we got the back end guys here. We've got Jordan Love going off, and this is all FFPC ADP. These are guys, this is one of the sharpest sites when it comes to drafting high stakes teams. So we got Jordan Love, 137, Kenny Pickett, Kyler Murray, Matthew Stafford, Brock Purdy, a couple of rookies people taking shots on. And then you just get into basically the guys who are the starters as of now, starters in name only. Obviously, after that, you can start taking stabs on your backup du jour. But when I look at this crew, the first thing that jumps off the page at me, obviously guys like Kyler Murray and Matthew Stafford, right, where they feel out of place until you consider the injury situations with those guys. But as we're seeing now with Javonte Williams, he might actually play. Kyler Murray says he wants to play. We can take that graphic down, Earn Dog. Kyler Murray says he wants to play. And he has a big reason to play here, and that's that there's all these people talking about how there's a new regime. They might want Caleb Williams. The easiest way to prevent the team from drafting Caleb Williams is to win. Caleb Williams is going to go 1, maybe 2 if somebody else comes out and pulls a Joe Burrow and just comes out of nowhere, throws 60 touchdown passes, and is a top dog. But as of right now, we expect him to go 1 or 2. If Kyler Murray wants to protect his job, the easiest way to do that is get back out there and win. So there's a possibility he comes back, but for now, I'm expecting him to miss up to half the season because they're not going to bring him back until he's right. With Kyler Murray, it's a very simple way I'm treating it. If I have an IR spot, I'm drafting him and I'm putting him there and I'm picking somebody else up. Simple as that. I mean, you can get him pretty deep and you immediately move him to that IR spot, and then you immediately get that bench spot back. And where you draft him, you've already drafted your full starting lineup and multiple bench spots. So for Kyler Murray, yeah, that's just a why not for me, especially if you have 2 IR spots, move him up a round or 2, because in that range, nobody's going to make a difference like a healthy Kyler Murray down the stretch. With Matthew Stafford, I just need more information. It is still July. I need to see him out there, huck it, chuck it. Him just saying that he plays tennis with Cooper Kupp and that therefore doesn't have tennis elbow, that's not working for me. That's not selling me. So I got to see him out there actually getting it done. So I look around in this range, and what I need to see is I need to see some sort of change. We do know that quarterbacks can obviously take a step forward, but if you have catalysts to help that, it just makes it that much easier. For example, coaching changes. Trevor Lawrence, right? Urban Meyer was an unmitigated disaster. It is funny hearing people, make cases for Hugh Jackson, for the Bengals and Browns, or other coaches, but I think Urban Meyer's tenure there is up there and possibly the number 1 worst head coaching debut I've ever seen. Not going back on the plane, kicking his own kicker and saying the head ball coach can kick whoever he wants. Just every part of that was a disaster. And it's not surprising that Doug Peterson comes in, a guy that has won a Super Bowl, guy that's worked with, Carson Wentz was an MVP candidate with Doug Peterson. People forget that. And Trevor Lawrence takes a big step forward. So coaching changes, that's one way to get there. Another one, weapons added. Josh Allen, I talked about it earlier, completion percentage as a rookie, 52%. That is well outside the range of the top 32 quarterbacks. It's so far outside the range of the top 32 quarterbacks that he came back the next year and threw for 58%, which is an increase, and that was 32nd. He literally went from unacceptable to dead last from one year to the next. The rushing is what kept us in. And then they added Stephon Diggs, and boom, goes up to 69% completion percentage, throws 37 touchdown passes. Did he get better? Yes. Did the coaches get better? Sure. Did adding Stephon Diggs help a lot? Absolutely. So those are a couple of things that we look for. I've been looking at it, and I've also been looking at FFPC ADP. That to me, I've said it multiple times on the show, but when I look at ADP, I want to look at people that have skin in the game. I don't want to look at Yahoo mock drafts or whatever mock drafts. I'm looking for guys that are putting skin in the game and drafting real teams and drafting them now. The FFPC high stakes buy-in is $2,000 for one team, and winner gets $1 million. And there's not too many teams in it, so very, very serious games. That's why I like that ADP. You should go over there, use promo code alarm at myffpc.com, and if you deposit over $35, they'll give you 25 for free. So that's a pretty good setup over there. So I look at the ADP for those guys. Earn Dog, if we could pull that graphic up again, it'll be a little easier to look at. Sorry, I'm yelling at you to get rid of it, and I'm telling you to bring it back. But it's easier to look at this way. The first guy I like is Kenny Pickett, right? So Kenny Pickett, and this is the argument we made for Tua last year, is we looked at where Tyreek Hill was drafted. We looked at where Jalen Waddle was drafted. We looked at where Mike Gesicki was drafted. And then Tua was not being drafted. And we said, look, either everyone's wrong about Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, or Tua's being drafted too low. And to me, I personally would rather have not spent up on Tyreek Hill, which proved to be a mistake, but I was taking a lot of Tua, which proved to be great because when he was healthy, he was a top 10 QB. So that worked out pretty well. In this case, Kenny Pickett, Najee Harris is going pick 40, Deontay Johnson going pick 70, Freiermuth 86, Pickens 94. All these guys are going top 100. I've seen people even take Allen Robinson, but we don't like Kenny Pickett. Obviously the downside is there. There's a chance he might not be that good. Last year, he only threw 7 touchdown passes, which is nothing. Walter Payton has more career touchdown passes than Kenny Pickett has it right now. But that's a guy that I look at the weapons and say, hey, why not? Especially in 2 QB leagues. Why can't Kenny Pickett just play better with all these weapons that they have? So that's one. Another one, this one goes to the coaching change, is Mac Jones. Mac Jones going off the board at 196. He's free, right? You don't need to draft him in single QB, but you can keep an eye on him. Last year was a nightmare with Matt Patricia, injuries to him, injuries to other players. Now they bring in Bill O'Brien, man. Bill O'Brien was part of, he was with the team from 2007 to 2011. 2007 Patriots and 2011 Patriots are 2 of the greatest all-time offenses ever. And I know Tom Brady is a lot of that, but we can't discount that Bill O'Brien was calling the plays. He was building that offense. And back then they had Rob Gronkowski as an inline tight end, Mike Gesicki in the slot, and Wes Welker getting 170 targets. Now they're trying to recreate that with Hunter Henry in line, Mike Gesicki in the slot as Aaron Hernandez, and Juju Smith-Schuster as Wes Welker. And I look around, and the Sauce Gardner, I pulled it up. He only played 9 snaps in the slot last year. So they're either going to need to change what they do to combat all these slot guys, or it could be free reign. So Mac Jones is a guy that I'm interested in taking. We forget he had the second highest completion percentage of any rookie all time, of any of the rookies out there. So I'm in on that. Only Dak Prescott was higher. That was the guy who was higher, and he turned out pretty good. Last guy, Ryan Tannehill, pick 213. This one's almost too easy. We expect the ADP to adjust, but it doesn't have to be that hard. He's got Hopkins, he's got Burks, he's got Chig now. As I mentioned earlier, less than 10% of QBs ever throw for 33 yards, and I watched Ryan Tannehill do it just a couple years ago with A.J. Brown. So entirely possible. If you want to take advantage of these ADPs and use my advice, grab those 3 guys, go to myffpc.com, use promo code ALARM, and deposit over $35. They'll give you a free 25. So that's what I'm doing. Or we can take the graphic now if you want. But yeah, those are the guys I like in that range. And again, make arguments for yourself. This show is about concepts. I'm giving you the concepts. And if you turn around to me and say, hey, Kyler Murray has a new quarterback and offensive coordinator, bad example because he's kind of hurt, or Russell Wilson, we talked about, new coordinator, make those arguments. I have no problem with that. If you have a reason for those guys, I would love to hear it. Hit me up on Twitter at Coop Fiasco. Put them in the chat here. So that's the way I'm approaching those guys. After that, we want to cover the entire position. We've covered in the beginning of the episode, we covered elite quarterbacks. We brought in Scott Fish to cover the mid-range. I just talked about the sleepers that are actually being drafted. Not really sleepers, but more like 2 QB league guys where they're getting drafted in every league. The last group here is the guys after that, where some of us play crazy deep dynasty leagues, crazy deep best ball or seasonal leagues or keeper leagues where you have taxi squads, you have spots to put guys. The ones I'm most interested in are tied to the quarterbacks that have the shortest leash. To me, that's Sam Howell and that's Desmond Ritter. Desmond Ritter, they brought in Taylor Heineke, who was a very serviceable quarterback. And if Desmond Ritter can't make the jump this year, I wouldn't. I mean, he's a third-round NFL draft pick. Those guys like Davis Mills, we've seen how short that leash can be, how easily they can be replaced. This is Desmond Ritter's chance to be the dude. And I see sellers in the chat. Ritter's my number one exposure at QB. I think that's actually fine. That team had one of the best off seasons I've seen of any team. So you can bet on Ritter. Just keep an eye on Taylor Heineke, because if it goes south quick, this team drafting a running back in the first round and bringing back Chris Lindstrom and Caleb McGarry and Keith Smith, like they're trying to play right now. They're trying to compete right now to win that division. They got the second best odds of any team in the division, and the top team, the Panthers they're not really that, or the Saints, they're not really that far out in front. So that I don't mind taking Ritter, but keep an eye on Heineke. The other one, obviously, Jacoby Brissett. He might just be a better quarterback right now than Sam Howell is. Sometimes that's worth it. Obviously, long term, we think Sam Howell has better upside, but he's a 5th-round pick. Jacoby Brissett was good last year on the Browns. Amari Cooper was close to a ton of his all-time records for receiving yards and targets and receptions and touchdowns, all of it, playing with Jacoby Brissett. So, I mean, he was better with Brissett than he was with Deshaun Watson. So keep an eye on that. And before I let you go, I'm going to give you one last name. The deepest guy that I'm taking, I actually drafted him in the last round of the Scott Fish Bowl, which is 2 QB league. And I'm holding him in a number of dynasty leagues because he's a great scratch ticket. Now, a lottery ticket is somebody you got to hold on to long term. You're waiting to see if they, if they break out, or or somebody gets hurt, like a handcuff. A scratch ticket, to me, we get answers week 1. Clayton Tune for the Arizona Cardinals was drafted this year by a new regime. Colt McCoy is old regime, and people at first were saying they didn't even know if they had any interest in Colt McCoy. If this team is doing a bridge year, which they clearly are, they're over under set at 4.5. Why not throw Clayton Tune out there and see what he can do? And in Superflex and Dynasty in these deep leagues, as we saw with Davis Mills, if you are starting, you have some value, especially in like a single season league like Scott Fish Bowl, where we don't care about long term. There is value there for bye weeks, for injuries. If he's a starting quarterback, he could start up to half the year. So Clayton Tune is a guy that I'm just, wherever I have a last bench spot, I'm throwing him in there. He's a perfect last bench spot, because if he doesn't win the starting job, okay, we need to drop somebody anyway. You have to make early waiver moves to have success in your league. That's where all the hottest pick goes. You have to have somebody to drop. So if he's not the starting QB, I'll drop Clayton Tune. I'll hit the next hot pickup. So that's my roundabout, the entire quarterback group. This is going to go up on Spotify and iTunes. Do me a favor out there if you're hanging out. Hit subscribe, hit like, hang out with us each week. We're going to do tight ends, and we're going to do running backs as well next. I can't believe I forgot the most important position in fantasy. Coming up after this show, we've got another amazing new show, Brit's Blitz with Britt Flynn. She crushed her first episode last week. Make sure you stay here, whether you're on the Better Sports Network or whether you're on Fantasy Alarm, and hang out and check out what she's got, because I do more concepts here. She hits on the news, she hits on the current events, and she crushes, man. So get your popcorn ready. It's news time with Brit's Blitz. Thanks for joining me, guys.